Well, President Trump has followed through on what he said he would do. He promised while he was campaigning to become president again that he would end the Russia-Ukraine war. And that is exactly what he's trying to do. He is trying to broker a peace deal between Ukraine, Russia, and really the rest of Europe as well. So we've got a lot to dig in here, a lot of breaking news updates on this. But hey, if you're new here, a little self-promotion real quick, drop down below, hit that subscribe button, make sure you never miss another video from us, and hit that notification so you know when we post every time. So we've got a lot to unpack here. So I guess we'll just start by a tweet or a truth that Trump put out yesterday. I just had a lengthy and highly productive phone call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. We discussed Ukraine, the Middle East, energy, artificial intelligence, the power of the dollar, and various other subjects. We both reflected on the great history of our nations and the fact that we fought so successfully together in World War II, remembering that Russia lost tens of millions of people and we likewise lost so many. We each talked about the strengths of our respective nations and the great benefit that we will someday have in working together. But first, as we both agreed, we want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Russia/Ukraine. President Putin even used my very strong campaign motto of common sense. We both believe very strongly in it. We agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. We have also agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately, and we will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation, some of which I will be doing right now. I have asked Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Radcliffe, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and Ambassador and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. He was the one who led the Israel-Hamas negotiations before Trump became president, representing the Trump administration, or the incoming administration. Steve Witkoff to lead the negotiations, which I feel strongly will be successful. Millions of people have died in a war that would not have happened if I were president, but it did happen, so it must end. No more lives should be lost. I want to thank President Putin for his time and effort with respect to this call, and for the release yesterday of Mark Fogle, a wonderful man, and I personally greeted last night at the White House. I believe this effort will lead to a successful conclusion, hopefully soon. Obviously, a lot to break down here. So President Trump held a phone call with with President Putin, and later in the day he did hold another phone call with President Zelensky. Obviously, what Trump wants is for people to stop dying. He has said it so many times. Because no matter where you stand politically, you have to acknowledge that it is no small feat to get the leaders on the phone of both of these countries. Trump has pushed for de-escalation and is advocating for a ceasefire. His stance, I'd say, is any peace agreement must respect Ukraine's sovereignty while also addressing Russia's security concerns. This is a classic Trump diplomacy. Direct, no nonsense, cutting through the red tape, cutting through the BS. Whether it'll work, that's the question of the day. Who knows if it'll work? But I think there's a lot of people that do have faith that this is going to work, and Trump's going to be able to negotiate. It already sounds like Putin is willing to negotiate it in. Obviously, Putin is going to be looking for no NATO membership for Ukraine, and I'm guessing that the 2014 Ukraine borders are just not going to be a reality to get back to, because we did get some comments from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth regarding this. So let's take a listen.
We want, like you, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. But we must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering. A durable peace for Ukraine must include robust security guarantees to ensure that the war will not begin again. This must not be Minsk 3.0. That said, the United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, Any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, and they should not be covered under Article 5.
Well, you heard it right there, straight from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. So obviously no NATO membership for Ukraine, which I think at this point is really a no-brainer. Do you want to bring the world on the brink of war? Obviously Russia is never going to accept a deal that includes NATO membership for Ukraine. We're not going to get to before Russia invaded Ukraine back in 2014 and annexed portions. I believe that was Crimea, where they annexed in 2014. But that's just not, it's not a reality. And like he said, it is just going to prolong this war. You know, he's given his take on the situation, and he's not sugarcoating it. Hegseth is directly arguing that the idea of returning to 2014 borders is unrealistic, and joining NATO is not going to happen anytime soon. Because here's the harsh truth. This conflict is not just about land, it is about power, influence, geopolitical strategies, geographical power. And Hegseth, he's not going to sit here and try and sugarcoat it. But also, you know, Europe, they need to step up. They need to take a more active role in this. They need to be pouring, you know, if we're pouring $1 into it, they need to be putting $2 or $3 for every dollar we put into it. Because here's the reality. We have a sea that separates us from Ukraine, Russia, Europe if war breaks out there. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. But the direct imminent threats to our country are very low. Now, granted, with NATO membership, we are going to defend our NATO allies. But here's the deal. Here's the reality of the situation. American taxpayers should not be the only one footing this bill for European security. For the same reason, it's like they cannot be the ones who, we can't foot 100% of the bill for NATO security. And not NATO security, for European security. It's not going to happen. And it can't happen. It's a perspective that you're not going to hear from these mainstream media outlets. They just want us to foot the bill and keep our mouth shut and let Europe just do whatever the hell they want to do. But it resonates with a lot of Americans who are questioning our involvement overseas. If we can have power and influence somewhere, we should do it. But if it requires us to shell out the majority of the money, I just don't think it's always, you know, Europe, you guys are going to be more affected by this than anyone else. You should want to put up more money for your defense. Because here's the reality of the war. You know, you can talk about diplomatic strategies and political power plays, whatever you want. But you have to remember that there is a human cost to this. To the war continuing to go on day and day and arguing for NATO membership, pre-2014 borders. There is a human cost that is associated with this that you have to take into account. Families are displaced. Cities are reduced to death and destruction and rubble. And people's lives are going to be changed forever. Diplomacy is not just about the deals and the treaties. It's about preventing more suffering. Because the path to peace is complicated. It requires tough decisions and compromises. That's just the reality of life. But here's the thing. The stakes are high. And really, our path ahead is really uncertain on what's going to happen. But President Trump, he's been bold. He's directly engaging with Russia, directly engaging with Ukraine. And he's going to pave the path for peace. If there's a path for peace, it's going to be paved by President Trump. And if not, we're going to see how complicated this conflict and this process really is. Now, let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think Trump's approach is the right one? Or are we expecting too much from diplomacy here? Now, drop your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a future update. Until next time.